The Minnesota Timberwolves are on a 7-game winning streak. Can the 7-game winning streak be trusted? Can the Minnesota Timberwolves go and run in the playoffs, or is it just a mirage? We're going to talk about it all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And I want to start off with the only topic we're going to talk about tonight is the Minnesota Timberwolves, who moved to 39-29 on the season today after a victory. And not only did they get a win, it was their 7th straight win on the season. And this time the win was against the Orlando Magic, a struggling team. And that's what I want to get into here, right? Can the Minnesota Timberwolves' recent stretch and their improved play be looked at as something that can catapult them in the playoffs? Are they a danger to knock a team out in the first round of the playoffs? Or is it just a mirage? When you look at the play over the Minnesota Timberwolves over the last 7 games over this win streak, right? They've beaten the Phoenix Suns, which are struggling, the Philadelphia 76ers, another struggling team, the Charlotte Hornets, which absolutely stink, the Miami Heat going through their own struggles, the San Antonio Spurs, who lost Wemby and they're without De'Aaron Fox now, and then the Denver Nuggets and the Orlando Magic over the last 2 games. The win over Denver, though, was a really good win over a Denver Nuggets team, 115 to 95, and that's maybe the win that you're looking at over this stretch that is definitely the best win over that stretch of games for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But even then, like, they overcame a 34-point night from Nikola Jokic. But even then, you're still looking at this team and wondering, can they really do something? Now, I like to go into the advanced analytics, so humor me for a second. Over the last 5 games, the Minnesota Timberwolves have the second best net rating in the game of basketball at 12.9. They have the second best offensive rating of 125.8 and the 9th best defensive rating at 112.9. They're 3rd in true shooting percentage, 2nd in effective field goal shooting percentage, 5th in assist percentage as well, 10th in rebounding. And keep in mind, most of that is without Rudy Gobert, and they have the number 1 record over that time, tied for the number 1 at 5-0, over that time. When you flip that and look at the last 10 games, things basically stay the same. They're 4th in net rating, 6th in offensive rating, 8th in defensive rating, 4th in true shooting percentage, 3rd in effective field goal shooting percentage, 6th in assist percentage. The rebounding goes down, though, to 24th in the league in rebounding, and they're 8-2 over those last 10. The Timberwolves were a team that made a trade before the season, sending Karl-Anthony Towns to the New York Knicks and getting back Julius Randle. And over that time, while a lot of people have made it about Julius Randle, whether he's the problem on that team, the Minnesota Timberwolves has actually been a better team at plus 34 with Julius Randle on the court, a plus 4 net rating, and a 116 offensive rating and a 112 defensive rating. So it goes to show that Julius Randle is not necessarily what's been holding that team back. I talked about it earlier in the season, how Jaden McDaniels was really the one player when you look at that wasn't quite meshing in. They seem to start fixing that, right? As a matter of fact, with Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, and Anthony Edwards on the court, the Minnesota Timberwolves are plus 69 with a 2.7 net rating overall. So there's some sign that those things can work out, right? Now, there was some question with Rudy Gobert and his pending return, how much that was going to hurt the Minnesota Timberwolves offense. And so far through, a small sample size of games, things have been okay, right? The bigger question that the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to really have to ask themselves is how to balance the Jaden McDaniels minutes with those players, right? And that's the thing that you're going to have to look at. Right now, the thing that, or over the course of the season, the thing that really has not been working the most for them is the Julius Randle minutes with Jaden McDaniels on the court with them. So a better balance of that seems like it's starting to correct itself as well, which is really good, right? The Minnesota Timberwolves really want to get out of or get out of the first round of the playoffs. They sit right now as the 7th seed in the Western Conference, and I think it's going to be kind of difficult for them to come out of that, right? When you look at the 6th seed, which is important for them if they want to avoid the play-in tournament, they are tied record-wise with the Golden State Warriors, and they both they're tied there, right? And whoever finishes this season the strongest matters. Now, the next team above them are the Los Angeles Lakers. They're 2.5 games above both those teams. But the Los Angeles Lakers have lost 4 in a row and Luke is out. LeBron was out in the most recent game. So really, I want to look towards Anthony Edwards, right? What has Anthony Edwards done over these last 7 games? He's averaged 26 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 4.9 assists, and he's doing that on really solid efficiency as well from the field, which is really important for him. 49% shooting from the field and overall 40% shooting from 3. And so this is a team that has depth, right? This also is a team that parts of their roster, of course, they made a big change last year, but parts of their roster absolutely are battle tested as far as what it takes for playoff basketball, right? The balance is starting to be struck there as well, right? You're starting to look at Dante DiVincenzo, of course, how he's used, which is a really important player potentially off the bench for this team. You still got Naz Reid, who we already know how good Naz Reid is, especially defensively, but even when you want to call on him to do some things offensively as well, it really comes down to that. The Timberwolves are one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now, and depending on how you look at their play and how much of that play is going to be sustainable for this Minnesota Timberwolves team, that is where you could kind of start piecing together how you feel about their playoff chances. I felt confident that the Timberwolves could at least be a team to get out the first round, right? I host Friday nights on Locked On NBA with Swiper from Locked On Nuggets, and he mentioned that he has the Timberwolves as one of his teams that he thinks truly can make it to a Western Conference Finals. Now, I'm not that high on the Timberwolves yet. I'm not at that place with them quite yet, but I do realize, this is a team that I think is a lot better than what they look like through their midseason struggles. This next stretch of games for them is really going to be important when you look at it. They face off against, over the next few games, they have 2 games against Indiana, which is a playoff team. They have a game against Detroit, which is a playoff team. They have another game against Denver, which is a playoff team. That takes them to April 1st, right? Now, in that, they also have games against opponents that aren't going to be as bad. They have a game against Utah, 2 games against New Orleans, which, depending on how Zion's playing, that could be a lot harder than what their record is showing, right? They got a game against Phoenix as well. And then they finish the season against Brooklyn, Philly, Milwaukee, Memphis, Brooklyn again, and Utah, right? So they have an opportunity to avoid the play-in. I think that's going to be important for them. Now, I don't know. I wouldn't pick them to necessarily avoid the play-in. I think that Golden State Warriors team has looked so good since the acquisition of Jimmy Butler. Jonathan Kuminga has just come back. But if this Minnesota Timberwolves team can keep up the momentum, if the Wolves can, this is a team that I do think can make some noise. And even if they do have to go through the play-in, especially with the Sacramento Kings right now and the Dallas Mavericks as the 9th and 10th seed, I do think that the Timberwolves can get a game against one of those teams, even if they lose the 7-8 matchup against the Clippers. So, I mean, hey, we'll see what happens here. But let me know down below, how do you feel about the Minnesota Timberwolves? How do you feel about their chances to make it at least out the first round? Do you think that they are a sleeper to potentially do something out of that first round of the playoffs and go maybe even further than that, maybe even to a Western Conference Finals? Let me know what you guys think on all that down below. Make sure you're following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.